Okay, so this this video is all about the components of an ecosystem, and we're going to be talking about food chains, webs, and pyramids. So let's get to that. Talking about those two different parts of an ecosystem, there are really two factors that we need to talk about. There's abiotic and biotic. Abiotic are things that were never alive. So these are not alive. Things like water, temperature, and air. So things like that, never alive, those are all abiotic. Things that are alive, things like trees and animals, plants and the like, those are the things that are alive, and so we consider those biotic. So bio actually means alive or living. So that's why we call them biotic factors. And you can see all that on that slide. Let's talk about producers and consumers. We talked about this a little bit in class, but a producer, remember, are those things that are that make their own food. Things like, well, let's write that, make own food. Things like trees and plants, really. There are some bacteria that do this. Not many, but a few. So they make their own food. Well, as consumers, don't. They don't make their own food, so they have to, consume. They have to eat things. They have to eat things like, other animals or other plants. So that's really the difference between the two. A food chain shows a relationship between these different plants and animals. It shows how each of the factors interact with each other. So, and it's one step at a time. So if we have the sun, terrible sun, but you get the idea. And then from the sun, this is where the energy starts. We get a producer, and then we get a consumer, and then another consumer, and maybe one final consumer. So it's showing how one producer interacts with one consumer, another consumer, and another consumer. So it's kind of like a straight line. That's a food chain. A food web is really the interaction between many I always want to put a Z there. That's not right. Interaction between many organisms. It's pretty complex. So it's showing the how the sun gives off its rays, and how then the producer or producers, depending on what type you may have. So there's a producer one, there's another producer, and maybe another producer. So different different plants, and how they give their energy to different organisms within there, the particular ecosystem. So it might be a squirrel giving, eating an acorn, or an insect like a caterpillar eating a leaf, and so it's showing how different consumers interact with different producers within a particular ecosystem, until finally you get to like the top consumer in that ecosystem, where he kind of just, or she kind of dominates the whole system. But all these little interactions can go lots of different ways, so it really becomes a web of energy flow throughout it. So that's a food web. We have different kind of consumers that we need to talk about. 5 in particular. So there is the herbivore, excuse me, had to sneeze. Herbivore, only plants, so that's all they eat. We have the carnivore. I'd redo that, but I'd sneeze again because I'm going to sneeze again. Only meat or other animals. We have the omnivore. He eats both plants and animals. We have a scavenger. He eats dead animals. And then the decomposer. And what they do is they break down dead organisms. So that's what they do. And then finally, you need to talk about the energy pyramid. The energy pyramid has several different parts to it, but pretty much it's just showing you the levels of energy through an ecosystem. So down here at the bottom, you have producers, and this is, your plants and grasses and things like that. So you have the reason why the base is so wide is that you have many of them here. The next level is your primary consumers. This is your second level. I guess you'd call this one your first level, so let me do this. No, I put that in green, so let's do that. First level. So these are like your herbivores. Okay. And then the next stop is your second, or your secondary consumers. And this is actually your third level. And these are your carnivores. And then all the way up top, it's what's known as, this is your fourth level. Known as your, I'm trying not to erase everything, so is tertiary. Consumers. And these are also carnivores. So, and these are like your top level guys. You know, your hawks or owls or bears or wolves, or not much will come after and hunt these things. These are the hunters or the predators, and everything underneath is kind of like the prey. So these are this is kind of like all prey down here, and these guys are of course your predators. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. That is it for this particular whisk. Make sure you do your question before class.